Hi, my name is Matthew Givens from the University of Colorado Boulder, studying under Dr. Jay McMahon. I'm here to present our work on nearly constant time SLAM-based terrain relative navigation for landing on an uncharted world. A lot of the work out there on the terrain relative navigation problem relies on the assumption that prior imagery of a celestial body exists that can be used to build maps before operation, which can then be used for navigation. While this makes sense for places like the Moon and Mars, which have an abundance of high-resolution photography available, other bodies such as the Jovian moons and beyond only have imagery taken from relatively far away. As a lander approaches one of these bodies, large-scale changes make the coarse imagery less and less useful, and the vehicle must then find new ways of bounding its errors. Simultaneous localization and mapping has developed many tools for solving a similar problem on Earth, and the goal of this work is to bring one of these algorithms, the exactly sparse extended information filter, to the TRN problem. The exactly sparse extended information filter, or ESIF, is an improvement over the more well-known sparse extended information filter, which itself is closely related to the extended Kalman filter, and has been used to solve the SLAM problem with nearly constant time complexity by leveraging the properties of sparse matrices. Here we modify this idea for the absolute estimation problem by considering two types of landmarks, mapped landmarks and opportunistic features. The former are considered to be known prior to operation, as in traditional TRN strategies, while the latter are discovered by the camera system of the lander during operation and estimated in the state vector of the filter, effectively building a map in the information matrix. We assume for this work that a suitable computer vision and feature matching front end is in place that produces perfect data association. The state vector contains the vehicle position, velocity, attitude parameters, and IMU biases, along with the opportunistic feature position states. The attitude is parameterized here using modified Rodriguez parameters. The vehicle states are denoted with X bar and have dimension 15 by 1, while the map states are denoted M bar and have dimension 3M by 1, where M is the number of OFs at any given time. The velocity and attitude are modeled as kinematic equations based on the outputs of the IMU, corrupted by zero mean white Gaussian noise. The force of gravity, Ag, is assumed to be perfectly known. This is an assumption that will be relaxed in future work. The IMU biases are modeled as constant, also with zero mean white Gaussian noise. The dynamics must be linearized for covariance propagation, and the Jacobians necessary for this are given here. Noteworthy is that the matrix Xi, used in the J1 equation, which represents the derivative of the velocity equation with respect to the MRPs, appears to be a novel contribution of this work. You'll find an explicit form of this equation in the paper. For the measurement model, a pinhole camera model was used that assumes full camera calibration. The measurement is essentially a normalized and projected range vector from the lander to the feature. Again, this measurement model is common, but its parameterization using MRPs is apparently novel. Opportunistic features were initialized when first observed by using the current vehicle position and attitude estimates and some assumptions about the body's shape and size. Solving this quadratic equation yields two positions on the surface, one on the near side and one on the far side of the body, making disambiguation simple. The near side solution is used as an initial guess for the feature location before tracking, and an unscented transform is used to initialize the feature covariance. EKF SLAM uses the familiar equations from the EKF and was the first approach to solving the SLAM problem in the 1990s. EKF SLAM initializes new landmarks in the state vector and actively updates both the constant number of vehicle states as well as the growing number of map states. This can quickly become intractable as the number of states grows and the computational complexity grows quadratically. The issue clearly manifests in the matrix multiplications in the update equations shown below. The SIF and ESIF were formulated to address this issue and claim performance on par with EKF SLAM. However, the original SIF has consistency issues stemming from its sparsification routine, which is why the ESIF was chosen for this project. The information filter leverages the canonical form of the Gaussian distribution instead of the more familiar moment form used in the Kalman filter. This means operating on an information matrix instead of a covariance matrix, and an information vector instead of a mean vector. The result is a form where the marginalization operation, used in the time propagation step, is more difficult than in the moment form, but where the conditioning operation used in the Bayesian measurement update is more straightforward. This has advantages over the EKF in that the information matrix is naturally sparse, made up of mostly zeros, where the covariance matrix is dense. This is because, in the covariance matrix, small correlations are represented using variances, which for uncertain quantities are typically very large. Conversely, small correlations are represented by small values of information in the information matrix. As a result, states with no prior can be initiated with zero information instead of infinite or very large variances. A potential disadvantage is that recovering the mean, which is useful in operation and is required for proper linearization of the motion and measurement models, requires a full inversion of the information matrix. This is very costly in terms of computation, and we will discuss the necessary mean approximation shortly. The information filter has the same flow as the Kalman filter, but the notion of information lends itself to a more intuitive physical analogy. The off-diagonal terms in the information matrix can be interpreted as links between states. The larger the number, the stronger the link. The SIFE is able to maintain constant time complexity by limiting link formation between the robot and landmarks and periodically breaking these links as old landmarks diminish and new landmarks manifest. The landmarks that are actively estimated at any given time are dubbed active, while the others in the map are dubbed passive. The number of active landmarks is limited to a constant, and the act of moving a landmark from active to passive estimation is dubbed sparsification. A naive approach to the time propagation step would be to simply invert the covariance propagation of the Kalman filter, here shown using the state transition matrix phi and process noise q. However, we seek to avoid inverting a large matrix like this. Given that the information matrix is sparse and the landmark states are considered fixed, some linear algebra tricks can be used to produce a time propagation equation that only requires the inversion of the 15 by 15 vehicle portion of the STM and the process noise covariance. Using sparse matrices, this can be shown to have constant time complexity. This operation has the side effect of causing fill-in of information in the off-diagonal terms between states in the information matrix, jeopardizing the sparsity of the information matrix as a whole, but more on this in a minute. As mentioned previously, the conditioning operation in the measurement update is simpler than for the Kalman filter and can be accomplished by a simple summation of the various contributions of the individual measurements. To recover the mean without the costly inversion of the information matrix, an approximation must be used. We have the benefit of only requiring the mean for a subset of states at any given time, as well as having a previous estimate of the mean to work from. Using the assumption that the parts of the map that are not being actively tracked do not change much between measurement updates, the required mean, μL, can be estimated by this simple linear relationship, which is constant time if lambda is sparse. This is the method proposed by the author of the eSIFE, and we found that it significantly outperformed the iterative method used by the original SIFE. The mean approximation must be done at every time step in order to linearize the motion model. The eSIFE enforces sparsity in the information matrix by periodically kidnapping the vehicle via marginalization. The leftover information matrix only preserves the correlations between landmarks while completely removing the connections to the vehicle. The original eSIFE implemented a relocalization model in 2D which amounted to an inverse measurement model in order to relocalize the vehicle back into the information matrix. However, relocalization is not so straightforward in a 3D world. Position and attitude could feasibly be relocalized using a perspective endpoint solver, but this would do nothing for the velocity and IMU bias states. Instead, a compromise was made here, where the information matrix was inverted at each measurement update and the 15 by 15 vehicle covariance matrix was carried forward from each update with process noise. After marginalization, the vehicle could then be relocalized using the propagated mean and covariance before a standard measurement update could be used to tie it back into the active landmark states in the information matrix. This is a table of the parameters used in a simulation where both the eSIFE and an analogous EKF SLAM implementation are tested and compared. Important to note is that the mapped landmarks, which provide solid inertial information to the filter, are only present in the first 150 seconds of the simulation. After that, the filter must rely on opportunistic features alone. Time propagation occurs at 10 Hz, while measurement updates are computed every 10 seconds. A maximum of 15 opportunistic features are tracked at any point in time. Here you can see the position and velocity errors of 300 Monte Carlo simulations compared between the EKF and eSIFE. Performance is comparable with the edge going to the EKF, and it is clear that the algorithms are not quite equivalent as they should be. This could be due to the mean approximation or some error in the formulation. That said, the eSIFE is over 3 times faster with 100 opportunistic features in the state by the end of the scenario. The attitude errors are likewise comparable, but the eSIFE again shows some extra activity that is not present in the EKF. Also, the attitude errors in both filters don't seem to be described accurately by the 3 sigma bounds, and the reason for this is not currently understood. Here you can see something similar to the mysterious attitude variances in the gyroscope bias states, where the 3 sigma bounds don't accurately describe the behavior of the individual Monte Carlo realizations. Accelerometer errors are described well in both cases, however. If we bump up the measurement update rate to 1 Hz, performance is improved significantly as would be expected. Despite updating 10 times more often, the eSIFE still undercuts the 0.1 Hz EKF computation time significantly, despite again producing some mysterious behavior. This figure shows the norm of the standard deviations of the opportunistic feature position states at the end of the scenario. Clearly, when the map landmarks are being tracked early on, the variances of the concurrent OFs are much reduced. Closer to the end, with no additional information coming from MLs, the features are more uncertain. In summary, while a nearly constant time algorithm is the eventual goal for this work, the algorithm in this presentation does not live up to that standard. This is due to a compromise that required the periodic inversion of the information matrix. However, the algorithm as described was still much faster than EKF SLAM and produced similar results, with some caveats. The discrepancies between the 2 algorithms warrant further investigation, and the pursuit of a truly constant time implementation will continue. The goal is an algorithm that can consume a fixed amount of computational resources on board a lander while producing both useful navigational information and a map of the new terrains it saw along the way. Thanks for listening to our presentation. If you have any questions after reading the paper, please contact me or my advisor, Dr. J. McMahon. I want to also mention that there are some errors in the equations in the preprint version of the paper, particularly in the measurement model, that have since been corrected in the final version. Thanks again, and stay safe.